Each day presents a series of choices. The time we spend on our work, where we set our priorities, how we interact with people, and how we invest our resources. We can feel overwhelmed and alone. Yet thousands of business leaders across the country have chosen how they will improve the bottom line in their businesses, strengthen marriage and family relationships, and impact millions of employees, vendors, and customers by discovering and incorporating real ministry through their businesses by joining the C12 Group. When you join a local C12 group, you'll be connected to the nation's largest network of Christian CEOs and executives. Through monthly peer advisory groups and one-on-one coaching with experienced full-time board chairs, you will gain insight and wisdom from those who have been there. C12 members encourage and hold each other accountable to the core values and biblical principles that guide them. C12 is not simply a professional networking group, a business Bible study, or a guest speaker forum. It's a movement of leaders changing the world by advancing the kingdom of God through the marketplace. Choose wisely and define true success in the eyes of God, living a life that glorifies Him. Get connected with a local C12 group near you and build a great business for a greater purpose.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. As you can hear, my accent is from South Alabama, right? A little further south than that. I hail originally from South Africa. Moved over here many years, and I'll tell you a little bit of that later. But it's truly an honor to be here, but even more so an honor to follow Buck Jacobs. Buck was with me at the beginning of my journey and was really a mentor for me in the early days of my discovery of what being a true Christian leader looked like. And so I owe Buck a lot, and it's really a privilege to follow him. Today, Warren spoke a little earlier about the benefit of storytelling. And so what I have to present to you today is my story. It's not a theoretical thing, it's a very practical thing, what actually happened step by step as I stepped out in faith. And in your little goodie bags, you'll see this little book. It's called The Business Card. And it's all about my journey, the journey of faith. And so it's going to be a little difficult to get all my experience over the last 10 years in 27 minutes. But if you do have a chance, take a look at this book. A lot of the pictures and stories that I share with you are in this book. And the book is really about the business card and the changes that made to our business. And I'll share that with you in a few minutes. Essentially, my story is somewhat unique because for almost 20 years, I lived as a CEO, as a rotten CEO, someone that really I'm not proud of, someone who used people to get where he wanted to go and tried to live the American dream by using people. And so God got hold of my heart 10 years ago and made a huge paradigm shift for me, and that's what I'm about to share with you. Many CEOs that become engaged in the Christian movement see it as their personal responsibility to live out that Christian faith in their companies. However, what I found is as our company grew, we grew from 100 to 200 to 300 people to 1 country to 2 countries to 3 countries, I started to realize I can't be the priest of my company because I just have too many people. There comes a time when you don't know everyone anymore. You don't know the names. And so what I decided to do was start a process of engagement. How do we engage the employees of the business all the way down to the janitor? And how do we empower the employees to love on each other? And as this heading here says, how do we develop a culture within the company? The panel that set up here just now spoke a little bit about culture. I want to share with you the culture before I had this transformation to what the culture is now. And so I'm going to run through some slides and some things to hopefully share that with you. Kind of where it all started was with my dad. He was a 19-year-old young man who left Germany and went to South Africa. And he started our business there. And you'll see that's his first savings book. And you'll see up in the right-hand corner, there's a little one there. That's the very first dollar. For those of you entrepreneurs, and I know there's some young students here from Liberty, it can happen. Our company is a testament to that with $1. And he saved enough to eventually start a business. And it literally started in a garage, you can see there. And he didn't have enough money to buy a four-wheel vehicle, so that was the first company car, was a car with two wheels. So that's how the company kind of got its start. Today, this is our plant here in South Carolina, and it's the entire campus, goes all the way to the side. That's our R&D building, and these are manufacturing and office facilities. And on the right-hand bottom corner is our plant in Santiago, Chile. And that's kind of a little bit of a story, is how to take this cultural thing to different countries, with different cultures, different ways of thinking. And so I'll share a little bit of that with you. So during my journey, I had to decide, was I going to come from South Africa, or live there, or come to the United States? And God answered my prayer in a very mysterious way. And that was the journey I had to make. And how was I going to make that decision? So I prayed. I said, God, please help me understand if I should leave or not. And God answered my prayer. One night I stopped at a red light in my car, and a car stopped in front of me. Two guys jumped out the car with what looked like a stick with a black bag over it. And it wasn't a bag at all. It wasn't a stick. It was an AK-47 machine gun. And he emptied that machine gun into my car. And I want to show you how God answers prayers. You'll see on the right-hand side there a tiny little hole. It looks like a little hole, but in fact it's more than just a little hole. That was the exit hole where an AK-47 armor-piercing bullet went out. Now you say, okay, well that's kind of pretty cool, but how close did it come? Well, let me show you. There's a slit in my shirt over there and a hole through my sleeve. That bullet went through the front of my shirt and out the sleeve, but it didn't touch my body. What do you think the odds are of that happening? Drive your car at 40 miles an hour and I'll shoot a machine gun of you, and the bullet will go through your shirt but not hurt you. It's 1 in a billion, I think. Now you can call that coincidence, or you can call that an answer to God's prayers. A God incident. And that's really what happened. God spoke to me, and so off I went. I came to America, and the big thing was living the American dream. So I really worked hard. I worked my butt off to try and build our business. At that point, it was relatively small. We had 30 employees, and I really worked hard to build the business up. I traveled like crazy, and success came my way. The company really started to grow. But what I found was chasing this so-called American dream. What is the American dream? It's all those things listed up there. And those of you that go to college and us that live the American dream now, we're taught in college, these are the things that you should achieve if you're going to achieve the American dream. The crazy thing is when I got to the American dream, I felt empty. I felt really pretty lousy. I'd gotten all this success, but my heart was empty. I didn't have real purpose and meaning to the business. I didn't really feel energized by it. And so I met a guy, and he said, well, Peter, I suggest you go on a retreat. So off I went on this retreat, and during that retreat, the pastor walked us through the concept of worship. And he said, who do you worship? I said, well, of course it's God. He said, okay, we're going to do a little exercise. I'm going to take your time and your effort and where you spend your money, and that will give us an indication of where and what you worship. And let me show you, this is what the result was from my worship center. You can see here, there was a small little time on Sunday for God. There was a little bit for family, a little bit for social responsibility. Every now and then I'd send a check to some missionaries that went over to Indonesia and some to India, and okay, got that done. And the rest of the time was spent doing my stuff, using people in the business to achieve what I wanted to achieve. This American dream is what I was after. And during the retreat, God really spoke to my heart, and he said, it's not about me being a slice. Because God was a slice in my life, just a little bit on Sunday. How would I make him an integral part of my life? And so what I did was I reevaluated my life. And this is what I came up with. That God was not a slice. He was the center and core of my life. And that's a question that I think all of us have to ask at some point. Who do we worship? And that's a great way to try and figure it out. So Doug was up here earlier and he spoke about being a nuclear submarine. Well, I was a Christian submarine. And what that means is that on Sunday, I would spend an hour in church, and the rest of the week, I would dive. And I'd be at the bottom of the ocean. And there was no evidence in my life that God was a part of my life, kind of like the Monday morning atheist. And that was really a shocking thing for me. And so during that retreat, I asked God, what is it that you really want me to do with my life? How can I live out my faith? And he made it very clear to me. There's that big, thick Bible with a gazillion words in it, but it can all be summarized with this passage here. And that is, in Matthew, it says, love me with all your heart and love your neighbor as I love you. That's as simple as it is. And that struck me for the first time. And that concept of the parable of the Good Samaritan was really the core for me. How would I live out my life to be that Good Samaritan, someone who would take care of others that were hurting in our company every day? And so really, for me, it was a paradigm shift. What happened was it was a new awakening to what God had called me to do, not just to make money in the company, but to care for my employees who were in my care. They were the broken person lying in the ditch in the story of the Samaritan. And I'd been stepping over him to get to the money pile. And so the concept of paradigm is this new vision, this new eyes for what God had. And I want you just to look at that FedEx logo. Buried within the FedEx logo, there's an arrow. An arrow is sort of hidden. Some of you may or may not see it. I'm going to show it to you. There's an arrow between the E and the X. You see it pointing this way? You guys see it? There it is there. See it? There's a white arrow, and it's pointing that way. The strange thing is, from today onwards, those of you that have seen it for the first time, every time you see the FedEx logo, guess what's the first thing your eyes are going to do? You're going to see the arrow first. And that's the purpose of the talks that you've heard all day today, is to change the mindset so that when you think of God, you think of Him in the workplace. It's a new paradigm for us. And so my new paradigm was this. Number one, I didn't own the business. Number two is it was a gift. And if it's a gift, I have a responsibility. It's like the story of the talents. And that it's a platform for ministry, and I have a circle of influence. And God's going to ask me, what did I do with it one day? I don't think God is going to ask me, Peter, how much money did your company make? But I think He's going to ask me, what did I do with the money to enrich His kingdom? And number two is, what did I do with that circle of influence? Those people that God puts in our care, those of you that are CEOs out here, those people in your care are not just people, they're souls. Several of us have spoken earlier about what's the cost of one soul. Well, I think that God's going to ask me, what's the cost of 300 souls that directly I've put into your area of responsibility? That's a huge responsibility. Mark Twain says something really interesting. He says, there are two most important moments in your life. Number one, the day you're born, and the second one is the day you find out why. Just think of that. Why did God create you? And as a CEO, why did He give you this company? Is it just to make money? For me, it was a huge paradigm shift. And so what I did was I tried to define, when I came back from that retreat, I said, God, if you truly are the master of the universe, and I get out on this platform for you, I need your help. And I'd fallen in love with Christ that weekend of retreat. And I felt it's almost like someone coming out of the closet for Christ, if you like. I said, I don't care what you think anymore. I'm here to declare my love for Christ, and I want to share that love with as many people as I can. And so what I did was we came back to the management team, and we started off by saying, what is the purpose of our business? You have to define it. you have to let all the employees know why the business exists. So this document took us several weeks to put together, and I want to share it with you. 3 very simple things. Earlier, one of the guys spoke about excellence. The word excellence is in there. Number 1, to serve our customers and stakeholders with excellence. I think everyone can agree with that. Number 2 is so we can achieve profitable growth. There's nothing wrong with that. But the third statement changes it all. This enables us to care for people in a way that honors God. So that changes the definition of why God has gifted me this company. Is so that I can make stuff with excellence, I can sell it, make money, but then use that money to care for His people. So that sounds easy. Now how do you go do that? The next thing was, how do we define the values? How do we define how we're going? I got 300 employees. You get up one day and say, well, we're going to change the whole culture of our company. They look at you and say, yeah, maybe not. So you have to define it. So this is how we defined it. We're a company grounded in the Christian values of humility, honesty, integrity, respect, kindness, and a sense of social responsibility. Our goal is to create eternal value by striving to honor God in all we do. This is reflected in how we conduct our business and how we care for our employees, who are our greatest asset. So that defines how we were going to go about doing this business. There are 4 fears that stop most of us. And those 4 fears, number 1 is, what will others think? Many of you sitting in here on a board of directors, you have partners, you have people in the business that maybe you don't own the business completely. Maybe you're afraid of what they're going to think. That's a huge stumbling block, but I can share with you many different creative ways to get around that. Many CEOs that I've helped through this journey, some of them through public companies, there are ways to convince others in small ways to go on this journey. So don't let that be a fear. The other thing is, will I be sued? There's a lot of things that are scary out there, man. You saw the Hobby Lobby thing. But how about if you've got a Muslim person in your company and you offend him? That's not going to wind up very good. So people, rather than go do something, the easiest thing is to do nothing, right? But there's a lot of things that I can share with you. I don't have the time. But number 1 is just respect. Faith, respect no faith. Respect others, because that's the core of our faith. Number 2 is make sure that everything you do is voluntary. Don't force anyone to do anything. Number 3 is don't discriminate against anyone for any religious purposes. Number 4, can I afford it? It's expensive. But God, economics, whatever you give Him, He will give you back multiple times over. And the last one is, will I lose customers? That's scary. It really is scary. But I can tell you story after story after story of how people will respect you for standing on values. We put that on the back of our business card, what I just showed you. We put it on there. And it was a leap of faith, let me tell you. And I was the first guy to do it. And our salesmen, we have 40 sales guys, they were reluctant to do it. They said, well, why don't you do it first? And we'll kind of have 2 cards. And we'll decide when to use which one. I can tell you a whole lot of stories about that. But anyway, let me just share with you one of our employees what they thought about this whole process. If you could just roll that video, please.
I think that has helped all of us to become better people, Christians and non-Christians alike, because the Christian core values and the Christians practicing those core values. Of course, the non-Christians see that and they tag along. And they see that it's a positive thing, it's a good thing, it's good values, or it's helped the workplace.
So if we're going to go about this, how do you, instead of just the CEO being the shepherd of all his people, how do you empower and engage the rest of the team so that you transform the culture of the company? You can't do it on your own. You have to ignite the hearts of the people in your company. And so this is how we went about it. We started a caring team. We got people from every department in the business, put them on this team, and gave them 1% of our total revenue. We said, here guys, we want you to use this money to care for each other. And you can see these are all the people in our company that are on this team. And right on top is our facilitator. And we have defined on my executive team, I have 6 people reporting to me. He is one of the people reporting to me. He is the vice president of caring. His job is to care for our employees. That's his only job. And that's his job up there. Those are the people he works with. And these are all volunteers that work with him to achieve that. So how are we going to do that? So what we said to the caring team is we want to give you guidelines on how to use this money. Number one is we want to make sure that you take care of the employees, their families, and the community. But we also want you to think of it broadly in three aspects: physically, emotionally, and here comes the kicker, spiritually. We want you to enrich the lives of our employees with this 1% of finances, to enrich their lives in all those areas. And I just want to run through this briefly with you, how we went about that. Here's some of the programs we came up with. A home repair. On a weekend, we asked employees to come together and to give their time. And during their time, they go out. Someone will submit their, we've got some single moms, we've got some people that are struggling. They would submit the thing and say, you know what, I got a roof that's leaking. Will you help me? So on a weekend, we've got 7, 8 volunteers that'll go out. The caring team will provide the funds to buy the shingles and nails and things, and we'll go out on a weekend and we'll do it for our employees for free. We'll also go out into the community and do it. Another thing we did is started a car repair fund. Many of our employees wound up being late in the mornings, and the team said, you know what, we know why. I said, why? He says, because their cars break down often. So what we did is we started a little thing. It's a car repair. It's called the Sick Car Fund. When your car is sick, you've got an 800 number. You call that number. They'll come pick up your car, repair it, return it to you, $0, free. And guess what? Not only for you, but for your spouse too. So people are like, that's pretty cool. And what happens is over time, when you start treating people with unconditional love, you start having them ask the question, why? It's kind of like Jesus went about and he helped beggars. And it's kind of like if you want to evangelize to the beggar sitting under the bridge, would you just drive by, give him an umbrella and say, bless you, brother, here's a Bible, I'll see you, man, and you drive off? Or you stop the car there, get out, give him a sandwich, and sit there and listen to him. And you do that every day for a week. What do you think he's going to say? He's going to say, why? Why are you doing this? And it's at that point that we can share with our employees that we're doing it because God has blessed us. And we're passing those blessings on to you in a real fashion. I'll show you some other thing. Addiction recovery, for example. The old Peter, if you were on any kind of drugs, there's the door, man. Done. Now, what we do is we send them to a Christian rehabilitation center for 12 weeks. While they're away, we pay their salary for 12 weeks. We go and help mama back home because she's now alone. We cut the grass. We take Billy to school. We help out. We pay him while he's gone. When he comes back, his job's still there, and we pay him a bonus for coming back. That's different. That's when you see a person not as a human resource, but as a soul. And that's what's different. That's where all these programs, and I don't have enough time, I'm running out of time here. I wish I had more time to share with you our wellness programs, our benevolent funds, our scholarships that we give, single parent support, marriage retreats. We help our employees when they're struggling with their marriages. We send them on an all-paid weekend away to help build their marriages. We have training and education. If they need finances, we support them. We have debt-free, interest-free loans. But before you get the loan, we send you on a program, how to help you manage your finances. It's all in-house we have. The next thing is we have the spiritual side. How do we help our employees spiritually? The first thing we did is we got a chaplain, and I'll share with you in a second our chaplain story. Then we built a chapel in the center of our business. If God truly is the center of your heart, He needs an office. And so I built him one, and I call it my boss's office. So when clients come and I say, I would like to take you on a tour, the first place we're going by is my boss's office. They're like, your boss? Who's that? I thought you were the CEO. I said, come with me. And I'll show you a picture of that in a second. Because those are telltale signs that your employees are looking for. Are you just blah, blah, blah? Are you all in? Are you willing to do that? We have prayer groups. We have Bible study. In the little chapel we we have a little prayer request box that we pray for. A team of prayer intercessors from our employees come in every morning and pray over those requests. We have twice a week, we've got 300 employees. Almost 100 employees show up every week for a Bible study. It's called Fit for Life. And we invite them and we feed them. There's an old Baptist saying, feed them and they will come. And I can tell you now, it works. Over 100 employees on all 3 shifts show up for a Bible study in a company. In a company, not a church, in a company. On company time, and we pay them to come. That's putting your money where your mouth is, trying to make it real. I wish I had more time to share all the different things, but I'm running out of time. The point of this whole story is displaying God's love. Those are all different ways that we display God's love in a real, active fashion. Why? Being good for its own purpose is useless. Doing it to create eternal value, to gain souls for heaven, to help your employees find their path to heaven. These are all different events that we have. I don't have time to go through all these, but I can tell you stories about every one of those pictures. These are all our employees that volunteer. Every week, we have another volunteer opportunity for our employees to get involved. We ask them to spend at least 2 hours a year per employee out in the community. And I can tell you, it is unbelievable how you can change your community. If you could, well, let's just skip that one. I don't have time. Oh, oops. Okay, just a quick thing. One of the other things that we went beyond just our borders, we went to Nicaragua. And as a company, our employees said, we want to do more. We want to go out and help people. So what we did is we decided to take 10 to 15 people every 2 months to Nicaragua. We adopted a barrio in Nicaragua of about 250 families, a really poor place where there's just sticks in the ground and black plastic around it. And we went out there with our employees every 2 months for the last 2 years. We've taken about 160 employees so far. And every time they go out there, we do something constructive. We've drilled a well, we have built a church, we've built feeding stations, a school, and then we went back and said, how do we create sustainability? We went back there and we started opening businesses. And our employee said, I have got a gift. I said, well, what's your gift? He says, well, you know what? I know how to make pizzas. So I said, okay, when we go over there next time, we'll go build a place for someone and they will teach them how to make pizzas. We'll build them a pizza oven and we'll go do it. We did that. One of the ladies said, I know how to cut hair. We went over the next time and we started a hair salon. So far, we've built 20 businesses over there. And I want to show you a small video of what that looks like. Oops, yeah, won't you show that?
Today is a special day.
El Ministerio Niños Escogidos
Chosen Children Ministries
ha tenido el sueño
has been having the dream
de enviar los niños que no estaban yendo a clases, enviarlos a clases.
to send these kids that has not been able to go to school to go to school.
Hay hermanos en Estados Unidos,
There's brothers and sisters in the United
hay
States.
amigos en los Estados Unidos
They're friends in the United States
que nos han ayudado
that has helped us
para hacer este sueño realidad.
to do this dream real.
Here we are, living in the moment. And here we are, dreaming in the open. Now look around, isn't this a new day? Make a move, doing things a new way. A new way. This is our world, and this is our time. These are our plans.
You know, every time I see that video, I choke up. Because God can allow a CEO to be a missionary. You can do it. You can become a first-class Christian and a CEO at the same time. You can see it there. I can't tell you how this motivates our employees. They are lining up to go to this. This past summer, 50 of our employees took their family members over there. We paid for everything to go and experience that. You talk about a life-changing experience. You want to have kids that are depressed? Let me tell you, you don't need pills to fix that. You need to go to Nicaragua and to see kids that have got just sticks and stones and they're happier than our kids. That's what we need. And that's what you change the culture of your company when you expose people to things like that. One other thing that's a cornerstone of our whole ministry plan is a chaplain. We have an onboard chaplain that spends time with every one of our employees. I want to share you just a brief statistic. In the United States, over 70% of our employees in every one of our companies does not go to church. Fact. So how do we help them? God has created this beautiful thing called crisis. Do you know that over 80% of people that are over the age of 21 that come to know Christ come to know Him at a moment of crisis? So where do crises happen the most? They happen in our plants. They happen in our lives. And guess who's there beside them? We are. Our chaplain is there to coach them through those extreme difficult things. And we're providing resources and funds to help make that real. Setting on marriage retreats, addiction recovery, all these things that not just blah, 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 but actually putting money behind it to resource it to change people's lives. This is some of the statistics I want to share with you. I don't have time, but at the back, there is someone from Chaplaincy out there. If any of you are interested in the chaplain, there is resources at the back there that you can ask for help. This is some of the things they do. They go to hospitals. They help with crises in their lives, jail visits, addiction recovery, all kinds of crazy things. But look at the bottom here. 76 of our employees have come to know Christ through this program. Isn't that amazing? Here's our boss's office, and it's a place where many, many people come to share their hearts and souls. So the question is, if you implement all these principles and care for your employees in a true, authentic way, what happens to employee turnover? Let me show you. This is where we were before I started my journey. 22% of our employees said every year, see ya, I'm going to vote with my feet and I'm getting out of Dodge. Look at where it is now. 3%. Do you know how much money we save on training costs? The amount we save on training costs pays for all our ministry efforts. God economics. He works in weird and wonderful ways. Productivity. There's a thing called discretionary effort. When you give people a purpose, that why they're working at Polydeck is not to make Peter rich, but so that we can go out into the community and enrich the lives of our employees and our families and our community. It gives people purpose. And let me tell you, there's nothing more powerful than a man or a woman with a purpose. And you can see what happens. Look at what happens to the productivity of our company. It's just phenomenal. I could go on for hours telling you story by story how employees go out and bust their chops at our plant to make us succeed. Why? Because they have purpose. So one of the things we have is what we call the balanced scorecard. We have a scorecard of how we measure ourselves in terms of return on investment. But then we also have one that measures eternal return on investment. I don't have time to go through all that with you. If any of you are interested in how to measure that, how to make it grow, I can share that with you afterwards. So it's basically creating this caring culture. I'd like to ask Jody to come up here for just a minute. Jody is one of the coaches. I started this organization with some other CEOs to help people that were like me, that were struggling to implement their faith at work, how to practically go do it. So we started this organization called His Way at Work, where we inspire and help leaders to improve their workplace by having God at the center and caring for their people as he did to create eternal value. So I'll just hand this over to Jody just for a second, just to kind of introduce himself.
Thank you, Peter. I'm Jody Armstrong. I'm a His Way at Work coach, and that was formed as Peter needed time to run his own business, and other people were asking him to help them with theirs. He formed His Way at Work, and I'm a coach there at the ministry. So what we're offering today is a call to action today. We're offering a free organization assessment for CEOs, presidents, and business owners. The opportunity is for you and your leadership teams to answer a series of online questions. Those answers will come back to His Way at Work. We'll collate those answers and we'll send those back to you. We'll get them back to you and present them to you. And the results will be that we'll be able to share with you where your organization scores high and where it scores low. And we'll be able to compare your answers to your leadership team's answers, the average of their answers. Your leadership team's answers will remain anonymous, so they don't have to be afraid about how they answer the questions. So what we do with that information then is with you, we can form a basis for recommending what your next steps should be in your organization to create a more caring company culture, much like what Peter's described here today. So who is this for? It's for those of you who are considering going down this path of workplace ministry, and it's for those of you who have already started the journey. So basically, it's for every CEO, president, and business owner in the room, if you'd like to take advantage of it. So what do we need from you? We need your email address. That's all we need. And we'll be standing out in the lobby there at our little table, at His Way at Work table. If you want to come by and put your email address on our clipboard, we'd be more than happy to get you started on the assessment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Just one last thing. Mother Teresa, she says something that really touched my heart. She said, we can do no great things. Nothing you heard today is great. But what we can all do is small things with great love. So I just encourage you to go out there and love on your employees as Jesus loves us. So thank you.